The invitation came on a Thursday. I barely noticed it at first, buried beneath a pile of unopened bills and catalogs. But then Greg's voice cut through the haze of my distraction. "It's from Ben," he said, his eyes lighting up like a kid on Christmas morning. Ben was Greg's best friend, his childhood confidant, the person who had been by his side through every awkward phase of his life. The bond between them was something deep, something I couldn't touch even if I wanted to. I'd accepted that from the moment Greg and I got married. But Ben's wedding? That was something I couldn't ignore, even if I wanted to. Greg opened the envelope quickly, eager to see the details, and I felt my stomach tighten as he started reading aloud. Ben was getting married to a woman named Lily. A woman I could never quite bring myself to like, no matter how hard I tried. Date set, location's nice. Greg rattled off, oblivious to the way my heart sank with each passing word. He didn't know what it felt like to be constantly caught in the undertow of Lily's exuberance, the way she made me feel like a shadow in my own life. I tried to like her. I'd really tried. She seemed sweet at first, smart, funny, energetic, but there was something about her that rubbed me the wrong way. It wasn't anything she said directly, but the way she would smile at Greg in that way, like she knew him better than I ever could. The way she would subtly undermine me. Comment on my clothes or my lack of social grace with that thinly veiled condescension. It was so exhausting to be around her, to pretend everything was fine when I could feel the pressure building between us. "I guess we should RSVP, Greg said, snapping me back to reality. I nodded, trying to force a smile. "Yeah, sure." But inside, I was already thinking of ways to avoid it. I didn't make the decision immediately. I needed time to think, to stew in the uncomfortable feelings that had bubbled up ever since the invitation arrived. The thought of attending Ben's wedding made my chest tight, like I was suffocating under the weight of expectations that weren't mine to carry. Greg didn't get it. He just didn't understand why I didn't want to go. For him, it was simple. This was a big day for Ben. His best friend was getting married. He couldn't fathom why I wouldn't want to be there, celebrating with them. He couldn't see that I wasn't just avoiding a wedding, I was avoiding Lily. But how could I explain it? How could I make him understand that it wasn't about her, but about the way she made me feel small? She had this way of making me feel like I didn't belong, like I was just a placeholder in the life Greg had before her. "You can't really be serious," Greg said one night when I finally told him I wasn't going. His voice was tight with disbelief. "It's Ben's wedding, Em. This isn't about you and her. It's about supporting him." I pressed my lips together, trying to keep my composure. "I know. But it feels like I'm supposed to pretend everything's fine. And I just don't think I can do that. Not with her." Greg sat on the couch beside me, his shoulders stiff, as if he were trying to figure out how to make this all make sense. "I know you don't like her, but you're making this harder than it needs to be. I need you there. Ben needs you there. We can't just ignore this. It's important to me." I swallowed the lump in my throat, feeling the guilt pile up like bricks in my chest. "I just don't think I can, Greg. I don't think I can sit there and pretend to be happy for something I don't even believe in. I don't like her. I don't know how to support this." He sighed deeply, running a hand through his hair. "So you're just going to let this drive a wedge between us? You know how much Ben means to me, right?" I nodded, my heart breaking. I did know. But this wasn't just about Ben. It was about me, too. About feeling like I was losing my place in my own life to someone I couldn't even connect with. I felt like a third wheel in every interaction with her, like I was constantly being pushed out. "I don't know if I can go either," Greg said, his voice softer now. "But I really want you with me. You're my wife. I can't just go through this alone." And that's when it hit me, the weight of the decision. If I didn't go, I wasn't just rejecting Lily. I was rejecting Greg, and Ben, and everything they had. I would be the outsider, the one who didn't support her husband in the way a wife should. It was a terrible place to be, but I still couldn't shake the feeling that attending would mean pretending. It would mean stepping into a world that wasn't mine, smiling through the discomfort. and putting on a mask that I wasn't sure I could take off once the night was over. The day before the wedding arrived. I had spent most of it trying to distract myself shopping for a dress I knew I'd never wear, cleaning the apartment in a way that made everything feel even emptier. I wanted to be excited for Greg. I wanted to share in the joy of his best friend's wedding, to stand by his side as he celebrated with the people who had shaped him. But all I could think about was how much I dreaded the thought of spending hours with Lily, of pretending we were friends. By the time the evening rolled around, Greg was already dressed for the wedding. He looked amazing, of course. He always did. But there was a sadness in his eyes as he looked at me, like he knew what I was about to say. "I'm not going," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. He blinked, the expression on his face flickering between confusion and disappointment. "What do you mean, you're not going?" "I can't, Greg. I can't. It's not about Ben. It's not even about you. It's about me. And I can't pretend like I'm okay when I'm not." Greg ran his hand through his hair again, clearly frustrated, but not angry. He understood, in his own way, but it didn't make it any easier for him. "So, that's it? You're just going to stay here while I go alone?" I nodded, feeling a lump in my throat. "I'm sorry." He stared at me for a long moment, as if trying to process what I was saying. Finally, he sighed. "I don't want to go without you, Em. But I can't force you. I just wish you'd try." I stood up, walking over to him. "I wish I could, Greg. I really do. But I can't. Not this time." The morning of the wedding was strange. Greg had left early, the door closing behind him with a soft click, and I was left alone in the apartment. I tried to fill the silence by doing everything I could to avoid the knot in my stomach, the guilt, the sadness, the feeling that maybe, just maybe, I had made the wrong choice. I couldn't help but wonder if I was making a mistake, if my refusal to go was a form of self-sabotage, but then I thought of the last few times I had been around Lily. The way she had cornered me in conversation, the way she had made me feel invisible, like a faded photograph in the background of someone else's life. I couldn't do it. I couldn't smile and nod while she acted like she was the one who truly understood Greg. While I sat there, a stranger in my own relationship, I spent the day alone, watching movies, cleaning, trying to fill the emptiness in my chest. When Greg came home late that night, his face lit up with that unmistakable glow, the one he had whenever he'd been around Ben. But then he saw me sitting on the couch, waiting for him, and his expression softened. "How was it?" I asked quietly, not sure I wanted to know the answer. "It was fine," he said, kicking off his shoes and sitting next to me. Ben was happy. Lily was. Well, Lily. But I missed you. I wish you had been there. "I'm sorry," I whispered, curling into him. "I just couldn't go." "Not like that." Greg kissed the top of my head and sighed. "I know. It's complicated." "I know." And in that moment, I realized that while this had been hard, it wasn't about being right or wrong. It was about being honest with myself, about acknowledging my feelings, even when they didn't fit into the neat box everyone else wanted them to. In the weeks that followed, I struggled with the aftermath of my decision. Greg and I didn't fight about it, but there was a quiet tension that lingered between us. He understood why I couldn't go, but I could tell that part of him wished I had. Part of him wanted me to embrace that part of his life, to find a way to fit in, and maybe, one day, I would. But not yet. Not now. Sometimes, it's not about what other people expect of us. It's about finding the strength to be true to ourselves, even when it means making difficult choices. And in the end, maybe that's the only thing that truly matters.